So in this video, we're going to learn about factoring by grouping. It is an extension of factoring with GCF, so we're going to review that. And it's not something we do all the time. It's not one of the more popular methods of factoring, but it is a method that you need to know because there's lots of different things that we're going to learn how to factor. Okay, so remember with GCF, we are looking for, GCF stands for greatest common factor. So we're going to look at this example and we're looking for what do these two terms, so notice it has two terms, what do they have in common? And the greatest thing they have in common. So the greatest number that I can divide 3 and 18 by is a 3. And the greatest variable that I can pull out of both of those is x squared. I can pull two x's out of each of them. So remember when we write GCF, the GCF goes in the front when we write the factored form. And then in parentheses, we do the division. So if I divide this, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So you can write the 1 there or just leave it off. I'll write it there just for the sake of this example. And then I'm going to take, I have 5 x's, and I'm going to take 2 out of the first term. So that's going to leave me with x to the third. And now I'm going to do this division the other way. So negative 18 divided by 3 is going to give me negative 6. And I have x squared here. I'm going to take 2 out, which is going to leave me with nothing. And the one thing I want you to make sure that you do, remember we check this inside. There should be nothing left in common anymore. That would tell you nothing in common. That's going to tell you that you have, in fact, taken out not just a common factor, but the greatest common factor. Okay? Also, you should visually be able to distribute this and get back to what you had the first time. That would check. Okay, so the note that you need to take right here is that grouping is usually done when you have 4 terms. Now, I'm going to say usually because it is possible to do it with 6 terms or 8 terms, but it's usually 4, so that's what I'm going to show you here. So we're going to do about 3 examples. So this first example, you can go ahead and copy that down. And to do grouping, we are going to do what is called group the terms into 2 sets. This is why we have to have 4 terms, because we need 2 sets of 2. So it's almost like I'm going to, for a second, pretend like these are 2 separate problems, and I'm going to do the GCF of each of them. There is a typo on this. I'm so sorry. That should say x squared right there. So fix that on your notes. Okay. So what I'm going to do is do GCF for each group. So the GCF in this first group, I notice is going to be 2. I can divide 2 out of 2 and 8 and an x. And so when I write that, that gives me 2x, and I'm left with x plus 4 when I do the division. Okay, now I'm going to pretend like I am doing a different problem over here on the right side. I'm going to pull the GCF out of this right side, which I notice is 3. And when I pull that GCF out, I'm going to be left with x plus 4. Now, at this point, you should notice something, and the big thing that you should notice is that these 2 factors now match. Okay, and I probably should have also put a plus 3 there because that is a positive 3. So now, if you can kind of wrap your head around this, we want to pretend like we have 2 terms. So now we've got these 2 terms. I have 2x times x plus 4, and I also have positive 3 times x plus 4. So if I think about those as 2 separate terms, it is now true that the GCF of these terms is x plus 4 because they both have an x plus 4. Okay, so let me show you kind of how we can write that just to mirror the notation that we've done so far. So if I divide both of these by x plus 4, remember that's going to put x plus 4 as the GCF in the front, and it's the whole thing, so I'm going to group it together with parentheses. And then if I take an x plus 4 out here, I'm going to be left with 2x. And if I take an x plus 4 out of this second term, I'm going to be left with plus 3. All right, you might want to rewind and watch that again, and I'm going to do another one, and then probably a third one. Okay, so this one is written correctly, no typos. So I'm going to start in the same place. I'm going to group into 2 sets. Then I'm going to take the GCF out of each set. So if you will pause the video for a second and take the GCF out of each set. So in the first one, you're taking out a 3x. And the second one, you're taking out a 2. So this should be now 3x times x minus 2. Remember, I'm getting this x minus 2 by doing division. 3x squared and 3x leaves me with just an x. Negative 6x divided by 3x leaves me with negative 2. All right, now I'm going to do that on the other side. I took out a positive 2. And when I divide, I'm going to be left with 2x minus 4. Now, I just noticed that I made a mistake. And the way I know is because I know that these inside parentheses are supposed to match, and they don't. So hopefully you caught the mistake already and didn't get yourself too confused. The 2 was not the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of 4x and negative 8 is actually 4. So if I take a 4 out, let me see if that divides better. X minus 2, it does, okay? So now these terms match within those terms. So x minus 2 is my GCF of the whole thing. And when I take it out of each term, I'm left with a 3x plus 4. So you might be starting to recognize this part that matches is the GCF in the front. And then the second set of parentheses, the second factor, comes from the original GCFs that you took out. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, so in this one, same thing. We're going to split them apart into 2 groups. In the first group, I'm going to take my GCF out. And I'm getting a GCF of 3x squared. Now the second one, you might say, well, these don't really have anything in common, and you're right. The reason I included this example is because if you have a negative in the front, so if you have a negative in the front, you need to take out a negative. And it may be like a negative number that you're taking out or just the negative sign itself. So in this example, I'm going to take out a negative 1 on this right group. So that's going to leave me with 3x squared, and I'm going to do my division, 2x minus 1. On the other side, I'm going to take out a negative 1 and do my division, 2x minus 1. The fact that these 2 parentheses match is like a good checkpoint. And now I'm going to take the GCF out from each of these, right? So the GCF is that 2x minus 1 that they both have. And when I divide it out, I'm left with 3x squared minus 1. So my final answer would be this right here. So make sure that you have good notes. You're going to need them for what we're doing tomorrow, and I will see you then.